Okay, I think it's so far, right, Chris?
Take it away, boss.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for joining. So for those of you who I've spoken to, you already know my voice. I'm Giselle. I'm the incoming Atlanta Area Evaluation Association president. And for those who don't know, Chris Vogelai, whose voice you've just heard, is the president-elect for 2021. So happy that he's here. I realize that we have a different assortment of folks on the line. So Chris, if you wouldn't mind just helping me just to figure out who's all on the call. I can't see it in front of my screen right now. I know Brian Han, I know I saw your name. Brian, are you on the line?
I'm on the line.
Hi, Brian. Brian is
Hey, good
he's
evening.
also an evaluator with Deloitte, so super happy that he's online. I saw Maureen, you're on the line. Maureen Wills.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yep, Maureen is an evaluator with CDC. Did I hear Sarah Gill?
Yep.
Yep, Sarah's on the line as well, who's also an evaluator with CDC. Charlotte, I think I saw your name at 2. Okay, so
She is on here. She's just on mute.
okay, cool. Who else is on the phone, Chris? And we could just call out their names.
Yeah, I see the great Linda Vo is on here. Hi, Linda. Aisha Rios.
Hello.
And Alicia. And then telephone numbers. I don't know who you are. Sorry.
So for those of you who called in, do you mind just saying your name real quick?
This is Linda Buffo.
Great.
Robin here.
Hi, Robin.
Madhu here.
Hi, Madhu.
Hello.
I'm sorry, folks. I just got tasked real quick with something I need to do. 1 second. Okay. All right, so if you're following along, I think you can all see my screen. So thanks so much for joining. So what we're going to talk about today is the strategy tour that I did for 2019 to inform our strategy for 2020. I'll go over that real briefly, and then I'll also provide an opportunity for Q&A in terms of just to kind of get a sense of like where we're going and what we're doing and how you can be involved. So just to start, so I reached out to 25 individuals who signed up to partake in interviews. And the way that we had identified these individuals I first started off with the council, so trying to see based on their experience of having worked with AaEA over the years, who would be some key people that we might want to tap into to get their perspective. So these were both folks who've been with the organization for more than 10, 15 years to folks who've been with the organization for maybe less than a year. And we've identified these folks as being pretty active in AaEA and wanted to get a sense of why were they involved, what their thoughts were about the organization, and how we might be able to improve next year. So the folks that are on this call, you were all identified as some of the individuals who will be able to provide some of that perspective. Of the 25, I had spoken to 15 people. These interviews had taken place from September through the month of November, and these conversations lasted about 30 to 45 minutes, either in person or on the phone. And I had bucketed the conversations based on these 3 bullet points, which I had just previously mentioned. And the reason for doing this was because we've seen a decline in our membership over the past year or so, and I think there's just been a need for some change in the way that how the organization functions, but also most importantly, what we can do moving forward to make this an opportunity to expand their professional network, to expand their professional development, to expand their skills in evaluation, but also make it more of a place where folks can continue to volunteer and contribute back to the organization so we avoid burnout. And if you are not speaking, if you wouldn't mind just putting yourself on mute, there might just be a little bit of feedback. So what worked? So there's some 3 key things that we were really excited to hear about. This year we focused a lot on our branding. So a lot of folks who've been with the organization for quite some time now said they love the newsletters. They thought that was a great way just to communicate about what's been happening with the organization. They also loved the change in the website. They really prefer, I don't know if, for those of you who don't know, the USF used to be a very bright green, which was very nice, but I think the folks really liked the gray, so that was great. Pro bono continues to be a really strong component of the work that we do with the Atlanta Area Evaluation Association. So for those of you who are new, our pro bono committee works with nonprofits throughout Atlanta, and then provide pro bono free evaluation services with the evaluators here that are part of the organization. The type of work that entails includes things from making things like logic models or like evaluation plans or developing metrics and that sort of stuff. It's a great way to not only do some evaluation work to help build up your capacity as an evaluator, but also to build evaluation capacity throughout the city. The other piece is that folks really like the professional development workshops from this year. So thank you to Chris and Linda Vo for putting together the health equity workshop, the journal clubs, connecting with our other local affiliates in other cities throughout the US to be able to just talk about evaluation and the concepts that are related to that. The other one is that we had also done was on data visualization, which was another professional development workshop that folks really enjoyed. So what wasn't working? So as I mentioned earlier, I think one of the challenges that we've experienced was engaging members. So what that basically meant is that we have a lot of folks that'll come to programs, but they won't necessarily, sorry, if you are not on mute, if you're not speaking, do you mind putting yourself on mute or just getting some feedback? Great, thank you. And so it was just engaging members. So not only in terms of coming out to some of the events, but also helping to continue to design and develop the programming. The other thing that we've also been noticing was just some leadership burnout. We've noticed that there's been a lot of very dedicated and committed volunteers over the years, but I think some of the challenges was that it's also the same folks that are volunteering, and that it wasn't always also a transition plan. So they also sometimes felt obligated to stay on. And then the last piece, which links, I think, to engaging members, is also retaining volunteers. So folks come, they're really happy to be engaged, but we may not always see them all the time. So we recognize that the professional organization, there's different types of commitments, but we wanted to figure out for next year what we can do to address each of these 3 buckets. So some suggestions that came out of those conversations was, the first one was to see more engagement between leadership and members. So one conversation, a couple of the conversations, folks weren't really sure who made up who the officers were or who the council members were beyond the committees that they might be a part of. So if they were part of pro bono, they might know all the pro bono folks. If they were part of programs, they might know all the program people. But beyond, outside their own committees, they really weren't sure who sat on what committee, what the other committees were working on, how they fit into the larger organization. And for new folks who joined AaEA, they also didn't really know what AaEA does ultimately. Yes, it's Atlanta. Yes, it's evaluation. What does that mean, and how do they fit into that piece? So, which then ties into articulating member benefits. So once somebody joins the organization, what do they get out of it? So I thought that was a really good point. So just because you sign up and you pay your $40, you know, beyond volunteering, what's in it for them? Why should they make the investment? Another one is that creating a welcome environment for members. So I know that the past couple of events, I've spoken to people that have joined some of our events, and they would say, oh, I just learned about this organization. I don't know anyone. I just moved here. Or I just joined because I'm interested in evaluation, and they didn't really know anybody. So it can kind of be a little bit intimidating sometimes, especially because we're either at CDC or we're in public health or we're a contractor with CDC, that we all tend to kind of know each other, that I think we may take that for granted. So just thinking about how do we make a more welcoming environment for folks who might be new, who might not be part of this network, I think is something that we want to change for 2020. Another one that I've heard is that in the past, AaEA used to be this very, it felt a little bit more like a community and has this family feel. And I think there's this yearning for that, even for folks who may not have experienced that previously or even now. So one thing we want to think about for next year is how do we get to people to come to the to make relationships and connections on their own outside of AAA facilitating those types of relationships. And we'll talk a little bit about that, of what we're trying to see for next year. And the last piece, which is what I talked about earlier, is a leadership transition plan. So it seems that when folks join the organization and they're a volunteer, they're tapped to step up to either a committee role or a council role, but there isn't really a plan. There isn't someone that says, here's how you do your job. It's kind of like you just kind of learn as you go. And that just seems to be like a cyclical thing, and then it becomes like a burnout issue. So there's a lot of things that we have to unpack for next year. And what I'm hoping that we do for next year, a couple of things. We are going to look at things from, we're going to spend the first quarter, the council is actually going to have a retreat on January 11th at my house for 3 hours. And we're going to plan for how do we create a process and address some of these more structural changes that we'd like to see. And then from a content perspective, which we've already started doing with programs and pro bono, is also seeing what have we lined up in Q1, what events has pro bono and programs already planned. We're going to post that up already onto the website. We're going to improve our communications. You're going to get a brand new newsletter. We're going to change the branding for that so that folks can start to plan ahead of time. If you were at the elections on Thursday, to develop a sense of community. So this also taps into a little bit of the third bullet point here, which is collaboration. We will be having general body meetings every other month, and that'll be starting in February. I'm also looking into some co-working space that my husband and I were already looking into this anyway, and some of the benefits will be meeting space. So we can also address some of the issues about folks having to meet at coffee shops or someone's house. If there needs to be a much more centralized location, we'll be having some diversity in space in that. So transition plans, we're also working on that. So if you're on a leadership role, that'll also be addressed too. So the 3 core priorities, I had laid this out last year when I had ran for president-elect, but again, those 3 are right here. Diversification of AaEA membership. I'd really like there to be more diversity in terms of who's involved. So I'm really happy that Brian is on the call, just to get more folks with a different background, different experience, different organizations, which also touch on the last part of collaboration, trying to figure out who else is outside of CDC, who's working with nonprofits, international organizations, that sort of thing, to see where we can plug in. One of the other ideas that we had touched upon that I had brought up during the elections too was to have these things called, Sarah Gill had pointed this out. She called it what did you call it, Sarah? A night out with an evaluator. So what that will look like will be, we'll be hosting dinners, maybe like once a quarter, where there'll be a dinner. It's going to be max 10 people, and we'll have an evaluator there who can talk about on a particular topic. So it'll be very, it's not going to be open to everybody. The first 10 people to sign up, and they have to commit because, you know, there's going to be dinner and things like that involved. It'll be a really nice way just to get to know each other in an intimate setting, but also get to know that evaluate on the type of the work that they're doing. So Tom Chappell already agreed to do a dinner next quarter. He just told me, like, you just decide when and he'll make it happen. But I'd love to see a diversity in evaluators too, because I know there's a lot of good work that other folks are doing at their place of work. And I'd also like to see that if we have any professional development workshops tapping into the organizations that we work with. I know that at Deloitte we do graphic facilitation. I think Lauren Reeve had brought up, there could maybe be some potential opportunity between our organization and pro bono committee on like how we can manage client relationships and managing difficult clients, because they have to manage a client on the pro bono committee side. So so that's kind of the strategy for 2020. We're hoping there to be a rebrand, a little bit more transparency, more communication between leadership and our members, but we also need your help. So these are the these are the 6 things that are outlined on our website in terms of like what you get as a member. So professional development and educational programming. So we're going to address that in Q1. Opportunities to network. So you've heard about the dinners. We're going to have meetings every other month, general body meetings. We're going to create a group me for all the members to just join. So if you hate group me, don't join, but you also can mute it, but it's a great way just for all of us to connect with each other. We're also going to rebrand our social media things. You're going to see more flyers, more visuals in the newsletter. The mentoring support to expand skills through pro bono evaluations. I think Lauren and Charlotte are leading that type of work already. Information about evaluation job opportunities and events. We're going to be more proactive on that. We're going to want to create more solicitation around that, have that section much more prominent in our newsletters. Leadership opportunities. Because we'll be having general body meetings every other month, there should be some opportunities for folks to be more aware of how to get involved across the different committees, and then opportunities to connect with leaders in the national evaluation community. Again, I think that's where these like smaller dinners are gonna take into place, or like book clubs or whatever you want. It's gonna be a good opportunity to be able to meet different people in different spheres and leaders in the evaluation space. So here is an organizational structure. It was last updated today, just to kind of get a sense of who everybody is and how we all work together. So Sarah Boyd, she will be the past president next month. Her work lane, so to speak, she will be working with the American Evaluation Association for their Summer Institute event. So every year that takes place here in Atlanta. The Atlanta Area Evaluation Association typically hosts that event. It's usually a fireside chat or some kind of engagement with the president of the American Evaluation Association. They were really happy with our event last year. They're actually going to be committing money and funding towards that event, so that takes place every single year. So that'll be really great, because it also puts our organization at the national, at the attention of the national level. I will be spearheading / working with the 20th anniversary celebration of AaEA. So it's really great because we have Maureen on the line and Sarah on the line, who have a lot of that institutional knowledge, who can connect us with the founders of AaEA. We're really hoping to make this like a great celebration, an opportunity for people to volunteer and collaborate. And we're going to think about maybe aligning that with the American Evaluation Association Summer Institute event. So it's not just a great event for the Summer Institute, but it's also just great, opportunity to celebrate our 20 years as an affiliate. And then Chris, who you all had the opportunity to hear from and who also set up this call, he's going to be providing insight in terms of like professional development opportunities. He's very well connected with the American Evaluation Association, a lot of the prominent evaluators and thinking around that. So you'll be hearing from him too. So on the line, you've heard from Linda Baffo. She's been heading up our communications group for a long time now. We are looking for somebody to co-chair that role with Linda. That role would be working with her on developing flyers, putting together social media information, and also the newsletters. I personally love the communication stuff and the branding stuff. So if you're very creative, you want to, help us get the word out there about our organization, Linda would be the best person to do that. We have Linda Vo and Alicia on the line. They run our programs committee. Linda, Vo, and Alicia, do you have anything you want to talk about for programs real quick before I talk about pro bono real quick? I can also just keep talking. Okay, so the programs committee, that is really essentially the place where we can get our evaluators to network with one another. And every event that they hold has some aspect of evaluation. So one example is the beer and evaluation event. I think the dinners are probably going to fall underneath their purview as well. The professional development workshops also fall underneath their purview too. Charlotte and Lauren lead our pro bono committee, as I mentioned before, which is the committee that's charged with providing pro bono evaluation services free of charge to nonprofits here in Atlanta. Our treasurer is Olivia, and then our secretary is Michelle. Whoever works underneath the membership committee, so we're looking for 2 people, and these folks would be helping to welcome, they'd be actually the point of contact for any new people that join or for anyone that has questions just about their membership. So we're looking for 2 people to spearhead that, but you'd be working closely with Michelle because as of right now, she's looking through and making sure folks have paid their dues and just any questions that they might have regarding membership. So so I think that's it. That's all I had for the group. It's a pretty high level perspective, but I wanted to just let folks know that we heard you and that we're listening. All of this is that as a group, we're going to be planning in January just how to operationalize. But I'd like to open it now for any questions or comments that you might have. And then also, if you're interested in getting involved, you can let me know now, or you can just let me know later, and we can work things. We can work together on figuring out a good spot to engage you on a leadership level. All right, Chris, how did I do?
Wonderfully.
Great. All right, questions from the group? Okay. All right, so hearing none, I'm just gonna go through real quick to the communications folks, Linda and Charlotte, to see if you all have anything else you wanted to add. Linda, did you have anything? Linda, Bafo, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
The main thing I want to add is that I need help. I've been saying that it's the work itself is not super extensive, but it does help to have multiple people in the committee.
Great. Linda and Alicia, Linda Vo and Alicia, anything? Okay, Charlotte and Lauren?
In terms of pro bono, this is Charlotte. We have opportunities to get involved year round. So if that's something that you're interested in or you want to learn more, just shoot us an email, pro bono AaEA@gmail.com.
Thanks, Charlotte. And Chris, I'm getting some chat notifications, but do you have any, is there anything in the chat?
It was Alicia responding that she had Skype issues and she has the audio only option, but nothing to add at this time. Just excited to get started.
Cool. Yay, great. And just from the audience, what we would love to hear, and this really is a space for you right now, is there anything on here that does not resonate with you and you'd like to talk about just a little bit more, or suggestions that you'd like for us to consider that we didn't raise during this call? And are there any specific topics that you'd like to, so we talked about health equity, we did data viz. Are there any specific topics that you might be interested in learning more about for next year as we try to figure out the professional development workshops for next year?
I would also add, and I think in with that question is um, if there's any barriers to attending our training that or our professional development that you think we don't do a good enough job addressing, or just things that we could do to make your life easier in attending any of our offerings. My old professional development brain just has me thinking on PD offerings, but anything really.
Hey, Brian, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but like, I didn't get a chance to talk to you, and I know that you and I have been emailing about like evaluation stuff. Was there anything particular that might be useful to the work that you're doing right now? Because I know you're not in a chronic or like in chronic, for example, with the work that you're working on.
Yeah. I think one of the things that's been, and this is more, this is kind of specific to what this is the pain that I live in learning. So for Deloitte, I'm working in it's the learning space, learning, training, development. And so something I've been trying to wrap my head around a lot of what our discussion, Giselle's been trying to coach people along what evidence-based really means. And especially when you have different disciplines involved in the process. So that's been top of mind for me.
Great. Yeah. Yeah, we get a lot of like, what is the difference in evidence-based and data-driven? Is this evaluation or is this performance measurement? Yeah, that's great. Okay.
Because there's a lot of myths that float, especially in the learning space. So models and frameworks that really don't have any evidence, but they just have a lot of traction in corporate America, and they just get used a lot, copied and pasted from one project to another. And then when you do the research, you're like, that's actually not, there's no science behind that. It's just a model that people kind of continue to use because it's got kind of some, social ability, I guess we call it that. Because it's easier to explain, but there's really no, when you actually kind of dig into it, you're like, that's not very helpful. So that's kind of that's a personal passion of mine too. You got to do it one step at a time. You can't boil the ocean, but I think, and I would like the skill set just as a consultant to help kind of walk people through that process and then hear from other folks that have kind of been through that as well.
And by learning, do you mean like education and training and that sort of stuff?
Yeah, it's specific to that, but I'm guessing other fields going to struggle with anything in social science, right? You're kind of walking, you're always trying to tread in those waters.
Great, that's helpful.
Robin here.
Hi, Robin.
A training that I really enjoyed in the past, and if anything else similar came along, I would be really stoked, was I remember a woman came and shared some resources, maybe it was a workshop at Emory, but about doing evaluation with low capacity organizations, and specifically talked through some resources and kind of simplifying and demystifying the evaluation process for those of us who consult and want to work with nonprofit organizations. And I really enjoyed that. So if there was anything else any other opportunities like that, I know that I would be very stoked on.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I know we struggle with that too when you're working with folks where it's like they've asked you to do an evaluation, but they don't really know what they mean, what they thought they were signing up for. And then you start rolling out the process with them and they're like, this is not what we wanted, but it really is what they need. And then like, how do you manage that relationship at the same time you're like delivering good work for them that, and you're like helping to build capacity at the same time.
Yeah, and it's a lot of what we kind of practice within the pro bono committee. We get a lot of practice with that with the 3-month evaluation support program projects, but some more broad training throughout on kind of how that happens, because I know that's definitely something I've encountered even outside of pro bono.
Yeah. And even amongst colleagues too, where they think they know what they're talking about with evaluation, but it's really they just made a survey. So it's like, so how do you talk to them about evaluation without being too jargony, that you've lost them? So it's a great one. Okay. So we don't have to take up the entire time, and I wasn't planning on doing that. I did want to hear Aisha, just kind of like as you know, you've been with the organization too. What are just some of your initial thoughts or reactions, or just some words of wisdom? Because now you're also working with Colorado.
Yeah, I just want to say that, I mean, everything that you've shared really deeply resonates with me. And I really greatly appreciate all the work that you put into interviewing so many in the Atlanta community to really understand what's working well and where we can do better. And so at a high level, I just wanted to say that. And then as far as words of wisdom, I just think, you know, doing what we do well as evaluators, right? Of really trying to understand the context in which we work and how those contextual factors both support and hinder us in our efforts, which is what we can see in front of us today with what you shared, Giselle. So I think continuing to do that work feels important to me, and continuing to create space to reinvestigate how things are going and just continuing that. So this isn't just a one-off initiative.
Yeah, and I want to, so for those of you who don't know, Aisha is actually our past president, and she's done a lot of work of just making sure that like the structures are in place and everything's like well documented, and she's just been very supportive of just like Sarah and me of just how we wanted to kind of rethink about how we approach the new year. So I wanted to, and she's now in Denver. She was also president of Atlanta while she was in Denver. So that just speaks to her level of commitment. So super want to recognize you too, and just really appreciate all of the efforts that you've put into this. I mean, like if we didn't have this stuff, like this, even this template, y'all, like this was like from them, like I didn't put this together. So like that, like little things like this, like make a really big difference. So yeah. Great. Well, that's all we have. Chris, do you have anything you wanted to bring up to the group? You can share about Jane Davidson before we log off.
No, I had mentioned it back at the social, but yeah, and trying to think of professional development activities. We got an hour of Jane Davidson's time at the silent auction, so we're going to bring in her for a quick webinar. I was really happy with the number of people that contacted me about doing trainings or just creating a network for independent consulting. So we are trekking down that lane. I know we have a training in the works. None of these have actual dates or times associated with them, but just to keep you up to date, we're doing an activity talking about learning agendas and helping you think about if you ever have to make your own, what do they include, what's their purpose, and all that jazz. So hopefully that's stuff that appeals to you, and we're always looking for more topics and especially more speakers. So just let us know what you want, what you need, and we'll do our best to make it happen.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. Well, thanks everyone. I'll be sending this out. You'll be hearing from the council again when the general body meeting will be taking place. We'll also be sharing the Q1 calendar too in January. That'll list both programs and pro bonos dates, so you can kind of get a sense of like how you want to get plugged in, where you want to get involved. If you want to be involved but you don't know how, still reach out. Even if you're just like, I just want to volunteer for one day, that could make a really big difference. We're always looking for people to help set up events, take down events, that sort of stuff. So you don't need to make a really big commitment right now. So thanks so much, everybody. If you were like, Giselle, everything that you said does not make sense and I completely disagree with it, you can send me a message privately and let's chat. I wanna hear what you want to see and how we can work together. Sarah Gill has pointed out that this is a do-ocracy. I agree, we're a do-ocracy, but I also want us to be a solutions-ocracy. So like if you see something, you don't like it, but please offer a solution too, and like let's work together to make this happen. So super excited for 2020. We got a lot of really good programming already. We're already thinking about it, and super grateful for all of you and your commitment to chat with me this afternoon. So thanks again, and we'll be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks, Giselle.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.